This is a 3D model of the outdoor kitchen island that I am starting to build. The top will be a butcher block top, the cabinet will be paint grade poplar and plywood, and in this video I'll cover day one in the shop by working on the face frames and getting started with the legs. This project starts with a pile of rough sawn 4/4 poplar, and all of this was pretty flat to begin with, so I skipped the jointer and went straight to the planer to begin skip planing. Now by skipped planing, I mean to take a tiny amount off per pass and flip the board before every single pass. So you're basically just taking a tiny amount off each side, and this won't guarantee a perfectly flat face, but if the lumber is pretty good to begin with, then the resulting face, it will be plenty good enough for face frames. The larger boards had to go in one at a time, but when I got to the 7-inch or narrower boards, I was able to feed 2 at a time, which kind of speeds things up. Feeding 2 means that the machine is constantly cutting. There's not really any idle time in between cutting, but I'm also constantly moving, trying to keep up with it. I filled and emptied the 55-gallon barrel of my dust collector 3 times while planing all of this, and in the end of planing, I accidentally overfilled the dust collector and completely filled the filter stack. Cleaning that out set me back by quite a few hours actually. So while technically this footage covers 2 consecutive days, the actual work in this video only totals 1 complete day of actual work hours. After way too much time removing, vacuuming, and blowing out the filter stack on my dust collector, every board got a flat and narrow face at the jointer. If this was a naturally finished piece, I'd likely rip wider and either sand or plane down to the final width, but this wood will not even be seen. It's going to be primed and painted. So for establishing the width, I'm just using a quality ripping blade at the table saw to get to the final width immediately. So long as the stock stays against the fence and a good blade is used, the resulting face will be perfect for paint grade projects. And to help keep the stock against the fence, I'm using these roller guides, and I've had these for a few years, and while I don't keep them on the saw for everything, because sometimes they are in the way, they are incredibly handy for situations like this. For a cabinet shop or a bunch of projects that use the same face frame stock dimensions, this batch of wood could be knocked out pretty quickly. For my design, I had quite a few different widths to get to, and those widths were needed to get the reveal that I was looking for each component. So this means that it was a lot of back and forth between the table saw, the miter saw, and also the workbench for marking out all my pieces. I know a lot of people like to use spreadsheets to get a list of parts and then sort them by width or length, but I prefer to use diagrams when breaking down material versus lists. I guess I like the visual aspect of it, so my process involves checking off each piece on the paper and writing the length and the approximate cut location on the board. Then it's back to the station shuffle. Make as many same width rip cuts as possible, identify the parts on the workbench, cut off the extra at the miter saw and return that extra to the stockpile, and then change the width on the table saw and repeat over and over again. This is probably much more efficient when working in a production cabinet shop that has just a couple face frame stock dimensions, but like I said, the island I designed had quite a few odd-sized parts. These roller guides are off on an angle towards the fence, and they only roll in one direction, so they greatly reduce kickback or prevent kickback, and they do a great job of helping produce perfect cuts because your material stays up against the fence at all times, especially on narrow hardwood pieces like this. After all of the ripping is done, I can cart my pieces and go back to the miter saw. Because I wrote the length on all of my boards when I was laying out the pieces, getting them all to the final length is pretty quick to do with the help of a stop block system. I made this miter saw station 6 years ago, which kind of sounds crazy to say. I disassembled it and moved it twice, and I can't imagine my shop without it. Having a dedicated crosscut station with an accurate stop block system ready to go at all times has been incredibly convenient. Here we are on the actual day 2, but still on day 1 of shop time. Now remember, I wasted quite a bit of time the day before getting my dust collector back in action, so technically still day 1 as far as hours worked. Anyway, the first task here was removing all the pieces that didn't get pocket holes, so that I could batch them out at my new pocket hole station that I just built. I recently upgraded my stepped drill bit pocket hole machine to this dual router low angle machine and made a stand with an integrated dust collection for it. Just like the miter saw station, having a setup ready to go at all times is incredibly convenient, and I am a sucker for convenience. Finally, some assembly can begin. Now, the biggest advantage of a low-angle pocket hole is the ease of assembly. For some joints, I was able to simply hold the pieces down and screw them in place, no clamps needed. But because I did not joint all of the faces and instead just skip planed, some of the pieces had a little bit of bow in them, which is okay for face frames as far as I'm concerned, but that required the help of a clamp to get those pieces where I wanted it before driving the screws. Now, my assembly table has 3/4 inch holes on a 4-inch grid, which allows for a lot of convenient places to use a dog clamp. Even though it's just a 3/4 inch plywood top, these hold-fast style F clamps work great. It was really nice to get the face frames done and clamped together because it's the first time that the full scale of the build is realized. This is kind of a large island here. Lots more to do, but definitely the first exciting moment of progress. One last thing that I wanted to accomplish on the first full day of shop time was to get the leg blanks glued up. Now, instead of sourcing thicker material for the legs, I designed the legs to start as a lamination of material just for the ease of workflow. Each leg was to be 3 inches square, which means 4 3/4 inch layers per leg. Same song and dance for the milling process until I had a stack of pieces slightly larger than the final dimensions to glue up. My favorite way to spread this much glue is with a small paint roller. It's inexpensive if you forget to wash it out, and it spreads glue so fast for larger glue ups. Also, I have a video on making these glue-up platforms out of PVC that you should probably check out if you haven't already done so. They're one of the most handy shop projects that you can make, and they'll basically last forever. And that's it for day one of shop time. Technically spanning 2 actual days, but it's only about 8 hours of actual working in the shop, so I'm calling it day one. I've got some family coming to visit, followed by a few scheduled days of camping, so I won't pick up on this one for a week or two, but be sure to subscribe if you want to see the rest of this island being built. Go to jayscustomcreations.com/newsletter and sign up for my email newsletter on my website so you don't miss anything that I publish. That's it for this one. Take care, have a great day, and I'll talk to you in the next video.